Hi everyone, this is Paul here from the Magdalene Centre. Today is an astrology report for Neptune Retrograde in Pisces, which begins on the 20th of June and finishes on the 25th of November. I'll be outlining some of the key themes and lessons this particular retrograde brings to us and giving an overview of what it all means. Before I do that though, I just want to clarify, as I always do, that astrology doesn't control our lives. It gives us a framework to help us understand what is going on around us. It helps to recognise where the key lessons for us to be learning at this time, where the key opportunities for growth, and what is the natural kind of course of action that we can then best take from it. So it's about using the astrology to go with the flow of things rather than fighting against it, and to do everything in its right timing. But it requires that we take action, and that the course of action we take are guided by wisdom and not just blind impulse. Now, in terms of Neptune retrograde, Neptune deals with things like psychic sensitivity, intuition, compassion, and unconditional love. And it's also about that sense of oneness or unity with Source or with God, whatever words you feel most comfortable with. But with Neptune, when Neptune is direct, the ego, or the boundaries of the ego, tend to be quite strong. So the illusions that the ego is woven out of tend to be stronger. Now, when Neptune turns retrograde, it's like this illusion that of separation that the ego maintains suddenly weakens. It becomes a lot more porous, so we feel the psychic energies around us a lot more acutely than we would normally. Now, one of the most important things we need to do during this time is to be very mindful of the kind of energy we're giving out. So because every mood that we have obviously generates energy and then radiates out from us. So whatever our vibration is, that's what we're contributing to the collective. So it's important that we have some kind of spiritual practice at this time. I mean, it's important all year round, don't get me wrong, but it's especially important at this time to spend some time in solitude and engage in some kind of spiritual practice that allows you to attune to your own energy and to seek to raise your own vibration through releasing any negative emotions or any negative energy from the system, and seeking to increase the amount of love and peace that we have within us. So spiritual practice is very important during the Neptune retrograde in order to avoid being overwhelmed by all the energy around us. Discernment is also very important. So more often than not, if we're already psychically sensitive, we may find ourselves walking through an area and suddenly our energy levels suddenly seem to drop and we have a corresponding crash in mood, or we may suddenly have a sudden surge of angry thoughts. And when this happens, it's very important that we pause from and ask ourselves, okay, why do I suddenly think that, or why has my emotions suddenly changed like this? Because it could just be that it's nothing to do with us internally. We could be picking up on the energy around us, and if we're not discerning, we can end up claiming ownership over energy that isn't actually ours. It's other people's psychic debris, if you like. So it's very important that we have this discernment. Another thing that will help us during Neptune retrograde is some kind of physical exercise to help us ground all this excess energy out. Because with all this psychic energy around, we can become ungrounded. So exercise is very helpful for grounding, as is any kind of earthy foods that nurture the body and allow ourselves to feel more grounded in the process. Now, another thing with Neptune retrograde, this is also a time for us to put into practice everything that we've already learned in order to seek to embody these spiritual lessons rather than just talk about them. And it's also an opportunity for us to dissolve any contents from the ego which keep us feeling a sense of attachment to certain things which don't actually serve us. And this is a time for, if the crown chakra isn't already open, this is the ideal time for working on opening it up, providing of course everything else is open and stable and balanced, and allowing that higher universal energy, that God consciousness, Source, whatever words you feel most comfortable with, but to allow it to come down through our crown and through our bodies and help to, or allow that wisdom, including that spirit, to guide us to let go of everything that isn't who we are, and to allow us the old sense of self to dissolve. So this is an ideal time for us to let go of any self-concepts that are limiting, let go of any self-definitions, and to let go of any attachments that cause suffering. Because Pisces at its highest level is all about spiritual healing. It's about that unconditional love and compassion that allows all the attachments that create suffering to be let go of. And by letting go and letting God, or letting go and surrendering to the flow, if you like, whatever you feel most comfortable with, either way, it's surrendering the old and letting go of the attachments that create suffering for ourselves. So if we are prepared to do this work, and we are willing to let go of the things that we thought we were but aren't, this is a profound time of healing for us, of healing on a much deeper level than any kind of physical or mental technique has. This is about allowing us to be healed at the spiritual level, which then trickles down through the mental, emotional, to the physical level. So if we use this time to engage in a spiritual practice that is based on enabling ourselves to let go of stuff from the past, let go of our attachments to self-definitions, to material objects, to people, and to let go of any self-definitions that keep us operating from a box, it's dissolve the box, dissolve the labels. We're not our thoughts, we're not the labels that run through our heads. Obviously we're given labels when we were born so that we can, I guess, identify one another or have means to call one another, but ultimately we're not the names that we're given. We're all spiritual beings, we're all having a human incarnation, and the less we can identify with the mind or with the mental understanding of ourselves and just learn to be present, the more we operate from our core essence rather than from the structure of the ego. And the more we engage in spiritual practice which dissolves the ego and reduces it down to form which is there purely to allow us to interact with the world, the more, I guess, illuminated we can become, and also the more influence we hold. The higher our vibration rises, the more powerful effect it has collectively. So it's not a time for indulging any kind of saviour complex. It's not our place to try and rescue other people. If people ask for help and they sincerely want to make changes to break free of their past, then fine. But this is not a time to indulge any kind of saviour complex or to believe that it's our job to rescue the people or to be some kind of messiah figure. So any kind of saviour complex, messianic complex, or any belief that is our duty to rescue other people, these sorts of things also need to be let go of. It's about being fully dissolving all kind of labels or all beliefs that keep us playing roles as opposed to being our authentic self. And it's about recognizing that if it's up to other people whether they want to partake in that sense of unity consciousness or if they want to stick to the ego and as a result indulging more and more suffering, which just seems to escalate until eventually they wake up. So all we can do is be the best versions of ourselves possible through shedding the egoic conditioning, shedding the contents of the mind, so emptying it so that it's a vessel that can receive the incoming wisdom, if you like. And by embodying the energy coming through Neptune, embodying that psychic sensitivity, and embodying love, truth and oneness, the energy given off by ourselves naturally has an effect on other people. So it's allowing the energy flowing through us to do the work. It's not about trying to intervene in other people's lives and trying to push them to do something we think that we believe is right for them. At the end of the day, we're all given free will, but we also have to take full responsibility for how we exercise our free will. It's not something that we can just use without consequence. But free will must be honoured at all times, and we must also allow people to make mistakes or to allow them to go through their own suffering if they're not prepared to help themselves. it's not that we relish in the suffering. It's not pleasant seeing people in pain, but sometimes the only thing that will wake the person up is to allow them to hit rock bottom, so that they have to learn from their own mistakes and not being saved or enabled to continue a bad habit or continue a negative course of action. For us to be the most empowered or the most helpful, we must learn to focus all that energy on loving ourselves and stripping away all the contents of the ego that keeps us playing small, and to heal ourselves so we become a healing influence and allow that energy flowing through us to do the work, rather than trying to make things happen for other people. If people it's only worth helping people if they actually ask for it, and it's a sincere request for help, because they don't, for whatever reason, they're not able to do it themselves. Yeah, at which point we can step in and lend assistance. We can at least create a nurturing environment that enables a person to make the change, or to realise that they're not who they think they are. They're actually a lot more than that, and they've been stuck under the tyranny of the ego. So the more we can engage in the spiritual practice that allows us to detach from the world around us, so not become bogged down in all the drama, and that allows us to reconnect with our core essence. But it's not mental concepts, it's about the energy. It's about feeling it. It's about being open to experiences that the rational mind cannot put into words, because truth itself is an essence, not a concept. We can do our best to try and verbalise the truth, but it will always be a poor substitute for the essence of it, the feeling of it. So, and again, one thing that can help us at this time is spending time in silence. So being comfortable, and it's also recognising we don't know everything, and it's okay not to know everything. It's actually, sometimes it's actually to our benefit to actually be honest and recognise actually we don't know something, because more often than not the answer may be within us, but if we're trying to think about it, that thinking creates a seal that prevents the answer from coming. But as soon as we acknowledge that on our own we don't know everything, it allows a channel to open up within the psyche that allows the answer to come through from divine inspiration potentially, or from information that we already had but is buried deep in the mind. So it's about moving beyond the shallow self, the ego self, and becoming the true self through dissolving the ego, dissolving the artificial separation within our being. Because obviously we need to exercise boundaries with other people in order to make sure that we don't get used and abused or manipulated by people. But we also need to recognise where there aren't actually any hard edges to anything in life. Everything's interconnected, everything flows together, and the box thinking that we conditioned with, all it's there to do really is to help us to understand it bit by bit, because trying to deal with it all in one go would be too much for the human mind. But at the same time, once we know the form of something, we have to let go of the form and to embrace the formless, to let go of believing that everything is linear and logical, and recognise that reality is non-linear. Everything operates in cycles, things tend to move in circles or spirals. Nothing truly moves in a straight line. Only linear logic is actually works on straight lines, and human construction is obviously based on logic, hence the straight lines. If you look at nature, there's nothing straight or linear about it. Everything is a complex web of interaction, and it's all part of something greater. So nothing is truly separate, and this is one of the key lessons of Neptune retrograde. Is separation is one of the core illusions that leads to suffering. It's recognizing that we are all part of the same consciousness, we're all part of the same human family, and it's not. The more we heal ourselves, the more we make it possible for other people to heal themselves as well through the example that we give. So by being a loving embodiment of the principles of Neptune in Pisces, which is that loving non-resistance, that unconditional love, that unconditional compassion, and the capacity to go with the flow of everything rather than resisting, which is a property of the ego. All resistance stems from the ego trying to fight against what is. As soon as we let go of the fight, or let go of the need to try and control things, and we surrender to the flow, more often than not we find our needs suddenly get magically met in ways that we never could have conceived of. So this is a time to let go of the ego sense of self and dissolve it, so that the true self can take the mantle of authority, if you like. And it's about opening up to psychic sensitivity, trusting the intuition rather than just rational logic, because even logic itself is based on assumptions. It's not as reliable as a lot of people conditioned to believe it is. But it's also bringing intuition and logic together rather than seeing them as diametrically opposed. It's reason and logic serve one another. They balance or reason and intuition, help to balance one another out. So we don't, because reason helps us to distinguish between intuition and just imagination. So it's about dissolving everything that's based on ego conditioning and learn to operate from our soul self instead, the true self that we only really experience as our own vibration. So whenever you have that moment where your mind is completely still and calm and you just feel that sense of serenity wash over you, that sense of grace and peace, and when we embody these qualities we bring the peace. To create peace on the inside through surrendering the illusions that drive separation and conflict, allow peace to be our fundamental nature again, and unconditional love, because these are our fundamental natures. We weren't born with conflict and anger and separation in us. We were taught that. It's about unlearning it. It's about the return to oneness, the return to unity, that unconditional love, and that psychic sensitivity, and the capacity to trust our intuition to guide us in times of uncertainty, whilst using reason to discern when the images we're having are just imagination or when it's actually intuition. So may Neptune retrograde bring you many new insights, and may this be a key opportunity for you to let go of who you think you are in order to be who you really are. And may this also be a time for profound spiritual renewal for you, so you can heal the wounds that are driven by the illusion of separation, so that we achieve that holistic union of body, mind and spirit, or body, mind and soul, whatever you feel most comfortable with. And through this unity we achieve a profound sense of internal health, where everything works together. There's no kind of dis-ease in the body, there's no disharmony which creates illness. We're operating from that place of inner oneness, and from that energy can then radiate outwards and increase of the overall vibration on the planet, which pushes humanity towards a greater awakening. So we don't have to take direct action in other people's lives. If people come to us for help, and it's a sincere ask for help, it's not them just trying to pass the book on to other people, then by all means offer assistance. But it's the one thing we need to remember is, don't entertain any saviour complex, and don't try to help someone who doesn't want help. If someone doesn't recognise what they're doing is deeply destructive for themselves, sometimes the best thing to do is to withdraw from the situation and allow the situation with them to unfold in a way that will allow them to wake up of their own accord, rather than trying to make things happen prematurely and enabling the person to continue bad habits. So may Neptune retrograde bring you many new insights and many blessings. Take care.